I think there's a lot to discuss, which I'm very excited to be on this panel with you and to start to dissect some of these different topics. I'd like to say thank you for everyone listening and engaging in the comments. I love that. From a West Coast perspective, there's so many different rumors, there's so much to talk about, and it feels like every few months we see a new change. With all of that happening, it's easy to get sucked into the emotion and the anxiety of these different changes. I think it's important to recognize two things. All these anxieties are in our students' minds as well. And it's frustrating, it's rough, because where we used to have conversations about all these positive things about studying in Canada, life in Vancouver, or wherever you might end up, we're now starting to have to address a lot of different rumors, a lot of things that are coming up on social media, and that's having a profound impact on the different markets. I think it is important to take a long-term approach and to start to think back to just how much Canada has done in prioritizing international students during COVID and various other times where international students did receive the support they were looking for.
Yeah, no, that's very fair. I'm aware we have a couple of tech issues with some people not being able to hear us, some not being able to see us. I just want to assure everybody who can, this is being recorded and that recording will be available and it will be fully functional after the webinar. So if you are having those problems, that's just so you know, we do have our tech team in the background working on it. So never fear, it will be available in that. So yes, maybe Pranav, now that you're back, let's come to you. So you can give that sort of East Coast perspective on what was going on with the cap and all this changing legislation. Obviously, Anthony brought up some really good points there about, you know, it's sort of not trying to look at too much of the emotion of these things, perhaps. But yeah, maybe if you just sort of give your side of what's been going on.
Yeah, when I just was coming back, Anthony was talking about these changes that kept on happening every few days. So they started on the 1st of December, where they said that that IRCC is going to uh, verify all the LOAs, right, before uh, taking a decision on the application, and then the change in GIC followed, or the living
Yeah,
expenses to $20,000, and this made sense, right? This was, of course, to cut down on the students who were using fake documents to come to Canada, and $10,000 had been there for ages, and clearly we knew that that was not enough for students to
yeah,
survive. So these changes were important, and then the big one came in about the capping, right, on the 22nd of January. Now, if you look at
seems like these
one
dates are really in your head there, Pranav. It's clearly been a
always
rough
pretty good at history,
time.
I
Yeah,
always knew about the date. So yes, on 22nd January, this decision was taken where the capping came into the picture, and PALs, the provincial attestation letters, were required specifically for the colleges in Ontario for all the
yeah,
programs where the student had to come and study in. Well, at what I see here, I'm not seeing the emotional side of it, but I think some kind of capping was required because post the pandemic, the kind of recruitment that was happening was. I, I don't know whether I should use the term over recruitment, to be honest. Like, there were a lot of students that were coming in, and when the numbers increase, then the students' success also gets hampered a lot, and it was
yeah,
quite evident, right? This was happening, and then the students who were not successful going uh, uh, were going back to like the prospective students, and the the feedback was not that great. So
yeah,
I think that thing was clearly required. Also, the program mix where the students were coming in. Uh,
yeah,
I think 50% were coming in for just one or two types of subject program
yeah.
only. That was also not the right way. Uh, One thing what I would like to say is that one particular change that happened was about the spouse, where the students were not uh, like if they apply to a college, to a post-grad diploma or a grad cert or a diploma, they cannot get, like the spouse would not be eligible for the open work permit.
Yeah.
I'm going to get a bit emotional here because the
Yeah.
lot of students from, let's say, Philippines or LATAM or other parts of East Asia, they would always come with spouses, and they did pretty well as well, right?
Yeah.
And they were the ones who got impacted the most out of it. Overall, it made sense, and when the PALs came into the picture, the distribution, the way Ontario government did the distribution also made sense, that they gave us PALs on the basis of our programming and the
Yeah.
domestic. So that was a good move. The only problem with that was that it just took them very long. That we lost nearly 2.5, 3 months of recruitment cycle.
It was a very long process. I remember as the Pi was reporting on it, we were sort of waiting for a while to see who was getting what and, which providers were getting what. And it was quite a sort of tumultuous time, even just looking at from the outside as a reporter. I mean, and, thinking about how the colleges were dealing with that, I can't imagine.
So yeah, this is what I think about the changes, that they were certainly required, but not. But yes, they've taken a bit longer. Like every
Yeah.
few months, they've come up with the changes that has impacted more. That's what. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, well, we're going to delve into that specific possible change. Obviously, there's been quite a few, but I'm going to come to Denis now, because as the sort of perhaps a specialist in careers for Canada, students in Canada here, he's actually got some labour market trends which are sort of hot off the press, if I'm correct, Denis. So if you want to just share your screen and perhaps talk us through that, because I think that would be quite interesting to see.
And thank you, everyone, for joining our session today. Welcoming everybody from all parts of the world. And my name is Denis, and I am the co-founder and stakeholder engagement person at Devant. And who we are, we're known as KB Devant. We are an organization that helps international students stay, work, and succeed in Canada. We work with over 32 schools across the country, and we provide all types of supports for schools to help them help you transition from school to the workplace. What I'm sharing with you is our latest labor market data summary, and this is from the past year. We work with a company called Vicinity Jobs out of Vancouver, and what they do is that they aggregate all the job postings across Canada. And so you can imagine that they take all of this information, they put it into a database, and we're able to now look at job postings and start asking questions using AI on what are the trends. And this is what I would like to share with you. Now, for questions, there is a spot, I believe, to post some questions, Sophie.
Yeah, if there's any sort of questions that is that for you to the audience, you mean?
Questions from the audience to me or to the other panelists.
Yeah, so they'll come in as we go. So just sort of a reminder that as we go, if you have any questions for the panel on either these or the rest of the webinar, do submit those in that box with the question mark in the speech bubble.
So based on 1.8 million job postings across Canada in the last year, this is the data that I'm sharing with you. The top three industries are healthcare and social assistance, accommodation and food services, finance and insurance. The top five employers would be the Alberta Health Services, Loblaws, the Health Authority of Saskatchewan, Walmart, and Shoppers Drug Mart. And so the reason why they're top five employers is that they're looking for a whole suite of skills from health from pharmacists, IT, data analysts, also data analytics. Now, here in Canada, we use the NOCs, the National Occupation Codes, and this is something you need to be familiar with because it's part of the whole PR process. These are the top 5 occupations based on the National Occupation Code. Admin officers, that's the code 13100, registered nurse, business systems, social workers, and finance and the finance industry analyst. So those are the top 5 occupations based on the National Occupation Codes. And along with the occupation codes are the occupational skills. So these are the skills employers are looking for when they're posting jobs. They're looking for project management skills, customer service, analytical skills. In analytical skills, when we do a deep dive, it's Excel. So you need to make sure that you get some good foundations in Excel. And by good foundation, I mean to be able to not only create formulas within Excel, but to analyze the data using pivot tables, pivot charts, and to be able to then look at the data and to provide a summary of what story is the data telling you. The other 2 skills would be budgeting and, again, data analysis. So the top software skills, again, over of the 1.8 million job postings across Canada, Excel, Word, PowerPoint, Outlook, the basic Microsoft Office suites. Employers are looking for skills in that area, and not only entry-level skills, but higher-level skills. And I highly recommend that you become familiar with Microsoft Copilot, because that's the AI tool that's embedded into the Microsoft Office suite. And employers are starting to look for skills in not only Microsoft Office product, but also Copilot. And for those of you who are looking at getting into the IT sector, having skills in SAP, ERP, in AI, and customer relationship management, those are desired skills from employers. And I'd like to close off by looking at trends in education and skills. The government uses this category called classification of instructional programs. The top program of study that's aligned with job postings would be business management, marketing, and related services. So those business skills are still very critical, and those are skills that employers are looking for. Health professions and related programs, so that would be in nursing, in allied health professions, in PSW. Computer and information science skills, along with engineering, public and social services. Those are skills, again, that are in demand. And again, for those of you who are looking at the IT sector, you need to really get into AI skills. And this is from the Wall Street Journal last month. And the IT job market in the US is expected to shrink. However, those candidates that are looking to work in the tech sector, if they have AI skills, they're the ones that are going to be very much in demand. So what I wanted to share with you is kind of the big picture of what's happening in Canada based on job postings.
Yeah,
any questions?
Perfect. It's a nice overview there. I really appreciate that. I'll come back to that in a bit more detail in a moment, Denis. Denis, I've been calling you Denis this whole time and you haven't corrected me. I'm so sorry about that.
That's okay.
So perhaps going to you, Pranav, what would this mean? What would tying post-study work to labour shortages do perhaps further back in the pipeline when you're talking about sort of international student recruitment? What would that look like?
So again, I'm going to talk a bit about history about colleges here. I think it's very important to know about that as well. So in 1966-67, when these colleges in Ontario were formed, right, the idea was to create skills amongst the people, right? And there was a shortage in labor market because of the skill shortage, and that's what the idea was, that these colleges should be formed, so that community colleges, so that the community will have people with the required skills. So I think aligning the postgrad work permit with the labor market will in a way make sense, because again, student success is very important to all of us. However, it's very important to see that, okay, labor market requirement is different in different cities. Everybody is talking about health, everybody is talking about STEM, but there are certain cities where there is business also part of labor requirement, right? If I talk about, let's say, London, right, where manufacturing is huge, where there is manufacturing, you always need people with logistics and supply chain kind of qualification, right? So it is very important that they understand how the labor market is required in each places, and then it should be aligned accordingly. It shouldn't be just a blanket wherein only these programs are aligned according to the just taking a blanket decision. Also, if you talk about the international student recruitment bit, most important point here is going to be the duration of the postgrad work permit. If that gets changed, then definitely it's going to impact a lot of like the recruitment. If the duration of the postgrad work permit doesn't change, and if they're still aligned with the labor market required programs, of course, no issues at all. I think, yes, the numbers are going to shrink a bit, but student success, which is more important, that is still going to be the key here. But if the duration changes, then we can see some like bigger impacts as far as the recruitment is concerned.
Yeah, so the key is how long, really, rather than perhaps what. But I mean, obviously a lot's in play here, but yeah, that duration. I mean, Anthony, how might this look over in BC? Because obviously things are slightly different, because obviously we're talking about the provincial government, and I will come back to that actually, because we had an interesting comment about that. But yeah, what would this sort of look like at Columbia College?
I think that's a good question. There's a comment sitting on the box right now from Matt. 2 levels of government.
No, I'm going to come to that. I will come to that. I want to get the whole panel's opinion on that.
I love that comment, because I feel like that is exactly what we are feeling right now. We're feeling policies coming out that are slow, that are disjointed, that are slowly rolling out one by one every few months. And when we start talking about this postgraduate work permit, it's another opportunity for that slowness to continue. And within that, I think there's, again, a lot of concern. This is going to affect our students' minds. This is going to hurt our partners, organizations. The delay in getting policies that support our students into place is not a good thing. Now, if we actually are able to put out a policy that's effective, that comes out in one phase rather than kind of is drip fed into the market, I think that's going to be a wonderful thing. Because as Pranav said, at the end of the day, we're all in this room talking to each other right now. And in reality, it's all about student success. Every single one of us wants our students to be successful, wants our students to be comfortable and enjoying their life. So from my perspective, I think from a West Coast perspective, I think there's a lot of support for policies that support our students. I think there's also a lot of concern about the different levels of government coordinating together with talk of an upcoming election. We don't know exactly when that might be, but would that also confuse the process? It could. It definitely could. So there's a lot to think about. Going back to one thing Pranav said, colleges were designed to support the students, to support our individuals, our community, upscaling in a much quicker, much more focused way than the university structure. And for Columbia College, this is exactly our truth. 1936, we started during the Great Depression for this reason. So I think it really is a fun story for us being able to say, well, we've been there, we've done this, and so have most of the colleges in Canada. We are ready to continue being innovative, making sure that our students are supported.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm actually just before we move on to the next question for Denis, I'm actually going to come to you, Denis, about this comment here. I mean, how does that affect sort of, providers like yourself? Because obviously it's one thing for the colleges having to deal with this sort of, entrenched bureaucracy, perhaps we could call it. But, what about those private providers?
I'm not sure if you can rephrase the question again.
Well, so this comment from Matt, he sort of said about this idea of two levels of government being slow, right? And it's sort of talking about the idea of how slow everything's going. So how does this affect sort of your landscape? Because obviously the universities feel it one way and the colleges, but what about Devant Group? What do you sort of see when you see how slow everything's going?
Sure. I can speak on to support what Pranav and Anthony have said. I was an associate dean at Fanshawe, Humber, and Seneca before I founded Devant. So I can attest to the resiliency of colleges to provide just-in-time skills development, and that's what they're known for. And they're the ones that will take our labor market data and say we need to, for example, Excel. We need to embed now Excel, but not only entry-level Excel skills, but higher-level Excel skills.
Yeah.
We are able to now look at your soft skills, your communications, your creativity, your communication skills. We can embed that now in our programs because those are the skills employers are looking for. So yes, governments are slow, but when they take a look at what the college system across Canada does, is that they're the ones that react on a very fast pace because that's what they're designed to do. They're designed to take a look at what are the skills employers are looking for and how can we design or align our programs to meet the skills that employers need. One of the latest piece of data that I did not put up on my slide deck was that Statistics Canada, which is in Canada, they're the ones that take a lot of this data and they synthesize it and they produce a report. And their latest report from businesses across Canada, 30%, so 1 out of 3 businesses are saying that they are in a labor shortage. So yes, you can read the paper, doom and gloom, but the fact is businesses are looking for skills. But they're not looking for any skills. They're looking for those skills that I showed you on our slide deck.
Yeah.
So what you need to do is to connect with Columbia College and Fanshawe College and say, align your the program and your skills to employment outcomes. And that's where you are going to be able to stay in Canada, be successful, and succeed in your dreams. Now, Pranav and Anthony, does that resonate with you?
I think very much so. I think for Columbia College, we've actually really looked at the job skills that are necessary. We provide every single student with LinkedIn subscription so that they can start to understand and go through this data themselves, but also start to upskill themselves and do it in a way that's very overt on their resume. So they can show that they've got a micro credential in data analysis or taken a small course in Excel. And this will really buttress what they're learning at the college, but it puts them in front of that lineup when they're looking for a job. And it also makes it very obvious for the employer at the other side of the table when they're looking at this student's resume.
And if I'd like to add something to your comment, is that there are things you can do now before you come to school in order to show up your skills, and that's where you connect with your college and say, hey, can I take a course, or is there like, for example, Excel skills? There are a lot of stuff you can do online right now in order to augment your Excel skills and your communication skills.
I think LinkedIn even has sort of free courses and things, doesn't it? So
Well,
there's definitely options out there.
And the other thing I'd like to mention is that all the participants in this webinar will get our free Canadian labor market report that I only showed you 5 or 6 slides, but we have a full report that will be shared with you, as well as a link where you can download the report also by NOC code and also by province. So these are this is the type of information that we share with our college partners, and because we really believe that you need to be well informed before you come to Canada. This is the program that's going to lead me to a job to where there's in-demand skills.
Absolutely. In fact, I was thinking about these students at Columbia College who get LinkedIn subscriptions. I don't even have a LinkedIn subscription, and I'm a professional, so they're lucky ducks over there at Columbia College. But I mean, exactly, that you're setting them up for success, and that's what's needed. I mean, Pranav, what sort of have you got any of those sort of pre going to Fanshawe initiatives or anything like that, or what have you got there?
Yes, I think micro-credentials, as Anthony mentioned, has become really important here, wherein students are doing the full-length program that they're interested in, but then there are these industry basic requirements that also include soft skills, because soft skills are as important as the technical skills at this point of time. So skill-based, again, micro-credentials have become very popular amongst the student. And specifically, if we talk about the support that we give to the international student, there is a workshop that we run, which is called as Fanshawe Works, which happens right before the induction orientation, where all the international students, they come in and they get in touch with our alumni, they get in touch with, and this happens physically on campus. So all the international students get in touch with the alumni, they get in touch with the industry, and there are like this happens for 2 days before the induction. So we try to make them understand that how important that you start looking for opportunities as early as possible alongside your education, and what kind of opportunities are already available. And this is what we do with our international students.
Yeah. Perfect, brilliant. In fact, I'm gonna stick with you, Pranav, because I also just sort of want to ask, and I'm going to ask Anthony this as well. But how do you work with employers around sort of the Ontario area? Like, what is that landscape like for you, especially at the moment with what's coming in?
Well, the thing is that, of course, like every institution, we also have a career services, and the career services are the one-stop shop for all our student, and so there are 2 things. First thing is, of course, the career services are the people who assist them to get them in touch with the industry, to give them like the basics of employment, that how to, like, it starts with how to structure your CV according to the Canadian employer, because CV is different everywhere, right? And for example, in India, your CV could be like, you don't have any experience, but you'll have like a 3-page long CV, which just doesn't make sense, right? So this is where they start, like from the basic, and then of course guiding them accordingly to get in touch with the industry. And apart from that, our programs have some kind of a work integrated learning, and that's really important for the students, whether it's a co-op or a small placement or a project. There has to be some kind of work integrated learning through which they can get in touch with the industry, build connections, which is more important than anything else at this point of time. The way the hiring has changed over the years is completely different. I think as everybody's talking about the skills, like the IT skills, the micro credentials have become important because of that. Soft skills have become important. Making connections have become equally important. than technical skills, right? So this is what we do. Our programming is structured in a way, and eventually the career services come into picture to assist.
It's all just built in, really, essentially, which is exactly what the students need. I mean, I imagine the situation is slightly similar at Columbia College, but obviously things are tailored to BC, Anthony. That'd be right.
Yeah, I think so. Definitely, we can say that. We're also a charity organization, which puts us slightly in a different category, different area of operations when we talk about Columbia College, which means that we like to look at our public colleagues and see what they're doing, but we also have to adjust it to our reality. And I think that's quite fun because we get to ask the question of what is the core value of the internships that Pranav is talking about? What really matters when we talk about those opportunities? And for Columbia, what we've seen is that the hardest job to get for an international student is the first one in Canada. That's always the most challenging. Once you have your foot in the door, it's as Pranav said, you're starting to build your connection. You're starting to really expand. You're starting to understand what to put on your resume. All of these things start to add up, and that's important, but it's that very first opportunity. So for Columbia College, we have the normal set of opportunities, whether they're on-campus jobs. We work and do different career fairs, different job boards, all of these types of things. For us, our integrated learning or our internships looks different because of that fact. We're a charity. It means that we've gone out throughout Vancouver and worked with some really interesting organizations like the YWCA and 312 Maine, different nonprofits in Vancouver. And we have actually sponsored jobs within those organizations. So we pay for students' wages for a student to be an intern with that organization. And we've done this for a number of years, really post-COVID, where we started to see things get a lot more competitive. So in that way, not only are we starting to create jobs or create opportunities within organizations that want that connection with students, but may have a difficult time, but we've created a pool of jobs that's really dedicated to the students getting their first opportunity. And after that, students really, we see it take off and it runs. These students want to be successful. I've seen a lot of amazing international students come in through my office, and it's really fun to talk about their goals, what they're doing.
And then a unique drive among international students, I feel.
Exactly. It's quite inspiring.
Yeah.
One of the things that, because we work with a lot of employers across Canada, they value the talent international students bring because they are now more so aware of the talent. Not only the talent, you are well educated, you have significant work experience, you are resilient, and you're adaptable. And those are the soft skills that employers are looking for. So in what Pranav and Anthony have said, and these are the experts, you need to look at work integrated learning, those internships, those co-ops, because to find a job in Canada, it's easy if you know the recipe, the secret sauce. And the secret sauce is you have to do the research. You can't wait until you graduate to look for your job. You have to start now. And you have to build a network, because your network is your net worth. So 80% of the jobs in Canada are not posted. That's a fact. 80% of the jobs in Canada are not posted. So how do you find a job if it's not posted? It's through your network. So you need to really beef up your LinkedIn profile. LinkedIn is used, and Anthony and Pranav, I see you nodding, because it's true. LinkedIn is used by small businesses to recruit. So you need to have a very good LinkedIn profile. You need to do some volunteer. It doesn't matter where, because you need to build your network. You need to do a good co-op, work integrated learning internship, because those that's where you're going to the connections, and use your professors. Your professors are the ones that are linked closely to the local economic development in the area. So I just thought I'd say that coming from somebody who's got like over 20 years of experience in this field.
Yeah, well, I mean, even the professors, they're all part of the network, right? So that makes complete sense. I'm aware we've got a couple of questions coming in, but there's one thing I really want to discuss with you, Pranav, which is, we've had some discussions previous to this webinar about what colleges might need to do if this comes in to sort of assist students in, making it more likely to get these jobs post their study experience, whether that be because they want to stay in Canada or because they want to get some experience under their belts before they perhaps go back home. So what do you think students will need to do if they want that work experience? I mean, we could see could we see numbers start to pivot towards those in-demand courses that lead to those jobs in labour shortages? Or, will they go what they've wanted to study, what's popular, like IT or business, which are perhaps not so in demand? I mean, are we essentially seeing sort of a stick or twist situation here? I mean, what do you think?
Well, since the announcement, to be honest, if it's been very interesting to see that we are seeing that the number of applications that we are getting have increased for these new popular programs apart from business. It's quite interesting that you mentioned IT, because for few of the cities, IT is in demand program. Right. So when we got our PAL distribution numbers, IT was part of the labor market requirement for London.
I wasn't aware of it.
Yeah. So yes, we are seeing that shift happening where health, human services, STEM, manufacturing, these kind of programs have become quite popular. But then there are markets like Africa, where we've been very popular for last few years, where the requirement is of majorly business, where they are looking for business kind of a program. So the numbers have dipped for business, but then there are other markets which are still showing some kind of interest in business, because that's what their requirement is, right? But overall, if I talk about, there is one program that has become very popular called PSW. Everybody wants to study personal support worker. It's become, like, to be honest, we are getting like hundreds of applications daily, and students who are not even eligible want to study PSW just because the government has started talking about this is where the labor requirement is. But you need to understand, or the students need to understand, or the agents or all our stakeholders need to understand, if we again start promoting programs without thinking about the student's success, without thinking about the student's background, we are creating another problem. It will not be business, then it is going to be health, right? Where the students with any kind of program would want to apply for health, just because that's what has become popular all of a sudden. So it's very important now that everybody should be aware that, yes, if this is what the labor market is, the right type of student should be provided. So that is a responsibility that everybody has to take.
Yeah, absolutely. I know that we've still got 20 minutes left, but I want to come to some audience questions, but I've still got a few more myself, but I just want to come to these. So one that I want to do here is, so most of the focus is to filter the inflow of students based on skills available or required for the current economy or job opportunities. However, students' inflow itself is a major contributor to the Canadian economy. So what do you think government can do to ensure Canada creates opportunities for almost every appropriate skill possible to be available for students? Does anybody want to take that?
Sure. I'll take that question. Canada still needs to bring in new immigrants, because we just don't have the population growth required to sustain our economic level. So our targets have not changed. It's still 450,000 new immigrants per year over the next 3-4 years. That number may go down, but it's not going to go down substantially, because if you take a look at population growth in Canada, we need new immigrants. And the government is realizing that if they're able to attach your PR to labor demand, then not only will it help the Canadian economy, but it will also help those who want to immigrate to Canada. So it's not doom and gloom. It's just a shift on how we think. For international students, the pendulum went way over because it was being marketed as a pathway to get your PR, as opposed to come in through express entry or through other pathways. It was marketed now, instead of a study permit, it's a study permit to get your PR. Now the government has kind of realized that no, we need new immigrants, but we need new immigrants that will be successful, and to be successful, they need to be tied to labor market demand.
Fair enough. Pranav or Anthony, do you have anything to add to that?
Just going to second what Denny actually mentioned, that Canada still requires people, and aligning the labor market is going to make sense completely. And that's what we again circle back to the same thing. That's what majority of the institutions were formed basically to do that. And I think it's just that we are coming back to the same bit, and that's what we need to do next.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, let's come to another question here. So this goes back to this sort of the tech side of things in terms of soft skills. So are colleges and universities doing enough to focus on those skills employers are looking for, such as AI, IT, and Microsoft skills? What more can be done? Anyone with that one?
I'll take that one, if that's okay.
Yeah, of course.
So here's the thing, right? Majority of the students, the international students, where they come from, there's no micro credentials there, right? Their concentration is only on the technical skills, right? As a college, or as an institution here in Canada, you can promote it amongst the student, but it has to be a student's responsibility as well. An institution, I can talk about Fanshawe here, does a lot where when we are meeting the student for the first time, and it's a prospective inquiry or a prospective student, we do talk about the importance of these skills, right? And it continues till the time students graduates, but then it has to be a student's responsibility as well, that they make full use of it. And these things are not there in the host countries where the students are coming from. So a lot of students are shy as well. You still go to them and say that, okay, fine, these are the opportunities. A lot of them are free for you. Go ahead and do it. The concentration is still on part-time jobs. The concentration is still on, some other things rather than this. Like, this doesn't come into their priority, which I think, yes, we can do a much better job. There's always room for that, but it becomes students and the agent or this other partner's responsibility as well to talk about these few things that are important for student success, apart from good grades and apart from the other education and technical things.
Yeah. Anthony, would you agree it's an approach from all sides here, or?
I definitely do think it needs to be a comprehensive conversation around what we need to provide for students to get those jobs. Right now, we're talking in this conversation specifically about AI. We're talking about Excel and micro-credentials. Micro-credentials came up as something that was going to revolutionize the workforce a few years ago. Before that, no one knew about them. In 10 years, will we still be talking about them? We don't know. But I think when we talk about getting students job ready and able to step into the workforce, it does take both, as Pranav said, the student's desire and interest and being prepared mentally before even leaving their home city to start to become active, to start to see what opportunities lie in front of them. but I think it also takes that long-term perspective. Because when we talk about that job, yes, Excel is incredibly important, maybe for your first job. But as we move through the workforce, what are we actually going to be asking future employers to have? And so we're talking about a tip of the iceberg right now, or the sore point that is sticking out. But we haven't also talked about what colleges are doing that is fantastic. We haven't talked about the 90% that is assumed to be working, that I think we are quite proud of. And if you pointed this out, but students are finding jobs when they graduate from Fanshawe. They are finding jobs when they graduate from Columbia College. So there's always more we can do. The conversation has to continue, but it's also working right now.
It's not all doom and gloom, as Denis said, right? I think we do have to focus on those positives a bit more, don't we? Especially when we're seeing all that. Denis, you want to say something?
Yeah, I like to. Pranav said something that really, I hear this all the time. Students need to assume responsibility for their soft skills. Because soft skills, you can teach soft skills, but you also need to. The only way you can really learn soft skills is to, when you get to school, join a club, and get involved in team in working in teams for in your courses. Volunteer, look for part-time jobs, because that's where you're going to learn the Canadian soft skills. And I always tell people that you get hired for your hard skills, okay, but you get fired because of your soft skills. So you need to take that ownership from the get-go in school, is to work on your soft skills, because that's where it's going to take you to the next level.
Yeah, absolutely. Denis, I'm going to stay with you just for 1 second, because we do actually have a question that is for you. This is from Tarek from Seneca Polytechnic. He said, I guess 30% of Toronto is under construction right now. I don't know if perhaps you have seen such things. Both public service and private construction are going on in the city. It is very surprising for me for that not to be on the NOC list or top employers list. How often do the lists that you presented change?
We change it every month. And in the list, what we do is that we exclude on our list any job that requires a high school diploma. So we only focus on college, university skills, not PhD, but so that eliminates some of the jobs, especially if the apprenticeship, in the apprenticeship space, because you don't need a master's degree to work in skilled trades. So yes, the list is skewed, but we would rather skew it in response to our college and university partners, as opposed to here's the list, and go figure that out. So it's a very good question. Yes, Toronto is under a lot of construction, but that's where project management skills come in place. If you're that's in demand. They need in demand IT, because for these large construction projects, they need your business analysts. They need data analytics. So there's more to a job than just a job title. It's the skills that go within that job, and that's what I try to illustrate.
Yeah, absolutely. There's one that's just popped up here, another one from Bipin, and I just want to. I've actually got a question a little bit on this, so I might as well sort of ask what Bipin is asking here. But how much impact do you think will be created post-election on the labour market priorities? For example, we may now have 5 top sectors as the priority, but post-election, do you think if the ruling parties change, it may create more or change some top sectors from the priority list? Because there's a lot of speculation on upcoming elections, which relates to too many doubts among students. It's a good point. How can one be assured election results may not have any adverse impact? maybe one of the college people want to take this? Are you sort of monitoring that as the election is, just for people who don't know, is supposed to be in 2025? I think it's on or before, sometime in November or October. So we're not too far away. But does anybody sort of, maybe one of the college guys want? Oh, Denis, yeah, if you're happy to take that one again.
Yes. The election is not going to change the labor market demand, because labor market demand is not tied to an electoral party. You may see some tweaks in the immigration policy. You may see some tweaks in immigration pathways and the provincial nominee programs. You may see some tweaks, but by and large, Canada needs immigrants in order for us to maintain and grow our GDP. What I would suggest you do is monitor the IRCC changes that are coming in the fall. So that's where you're going to get, to me, big changes are coming in the fall. And that's mainly because of IRCC. But from a election standpoint, 2025, the labor market demands are not going to change.
Yeah. And do keep up on the pie, because we will be covering those as they come out, of course. I mean, Pranav, maybe just sort of a bit sort of wider on the election. I mean, where do you see things standing sort of after this election for the next few years in terms of Canada's employability? Because obviously it's been such a rough time now. Do you think things are going to get better, perhaps? Or what are your thoughts?
Well, I'm going to be quite positive about things. I think that things are going to get better. That's what I feel from outside. Just to let you guys know that I'm in India. I'm based in India. I don't know if I have an authority to comment on Canadian elections or yeah. But just from the outside, or being in the system for last few years, I feel a lot depends on how the Canadian economy also changes. That is the point here. Like, if the economy worsens, then things are not going to be as great.
Bets are off, really, aren't they?
Depends on how the economy changes. If it's going to get better, the inflation would be controlled or not. I think these factors would be way more important rather than this will determine how things, whether would be positive or negative going forward.
Yeah, I mean, Anthony, do you have any sort of thoughts on this? I mean, do you think things might be maybe less reactionary if there was a different ruling party? I mean, I know that we're getting into politics territory here, but anything you might want to say?
Yeah, I think I'll try and hold back my biases from the West Coast, do my best to stay neutral and not advocate for one party or another. I think when we talk about Canada's economy, it is heavily influenced by the USA. It's heavily influenced by larger neighbors, as regardless of how proud I am of Canada, I have to also understand its place within the global context. And with that in mind, the election will change some things. There's no doubt about that. But in terms of the economy, I think right now, one of the biggest impacts is just the global market. So with the election coming up, definitely it will change different factors. I think Denis has spoken about what to look for long term, though, and I think that's incredibly important. The policies might have different titles, they might have different highlight points, but by and large, we really are pretty stable as a country. So bias aside, I think really the future is going to be positive. It might just take a little bit to get there.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, sort of just a lot. Oh, Denis, you want to say something? Yeah, go for it.
I just want to say, I want to go on record to say that I'm very positive for Canada, the economy. Everything I've been reading so far has been very positive. You have to really read the media and judge for yourself, but that's why you read the Pine News. Talk to the college, your college people. They're the ones that are informed, and we're in there's a huge labor market demand. And I go back to the StatsCan report saying that 1 out of 3 businesses are looking for talent, but they're looking for the right talent. And the colleges will prepare you for the world of work. And don't forget your soft skills. You need to assume that responsibility. Be active in clubs, volunteer, look for part-time. Your first job is going to be the most difficult one, but once you get your first job, you'll know the secret sauce.
Absolutely. Secret sauces. There is just one more question here. I mean, I think this is sort of quite, this is probably quite easy to find out, but are there any places that you guys know that will have that statistical data about where the jobs that are necessary in Canada? Does it differ much between provinces, or what do you generally see?
Yeah, definitely. Well, every city is different. The requirement is different.
Yeah.
And it is going to be completely different. So for us, we get majority of the data from LEDC, London Economic Development Corporation, and and they are the ones who provide us the data that where exactly they see the growth coming in, and they are our important stakeholders as well when we design our programs. Like when we open a new program or we have to change our programs, they also advise us, because their input is as important as anybody else's. They give us the data that where exactly the workforces would be going, what kind of industries are coming in, and what kind of industries have become obsolete. So so LEDC is one of local partners of ours.
Brilliant. Yeah. Well, that is all the time that we have. Thank you all of you so much for coming and chatting on the webinar. I think it was a really interesting discussion. Definitely want to sort of look back on, and hopefully it will be positive when we sort of look back on this in the future, as predicted by all of you. So yeah, and thanks to the audience. You've been great. Really appreciate your interaction. Yeah, we'll see what the IRCC decides to do in due course, I'm sure. Yeah, just keep updated on the pie. Please do go and find a bit more out about Fanshawe College. We have a button just below our faces to go and find out a bit more about Fanshawe. We hope you enjoyed today's webinar. Thank you very much, and we'll see you at the next one.